Welcome to Seth's Daily Podcast. Without you guys, this wouldn't be possible. I want to thank you guys for subscribing. We're blessed enough to have an interview with the supernatural sleuth. How are you doing tonight, man?
Doing good, brother. How you?
Doing great, man. Appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to do the podcast.
My pleasure, man. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you on, definitely, man. Love your TikToks for sure.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. And we're actually going to be starting the podcast on Simplecast. It's going to be on Spotify, iTunes, everything. So I'm definitely excited about that. And I'm excited to have you on as well, man. Now, what got you started into doing TikTok videos on the supernatural and cryptids?
Well, I've always been a big like paranormal freak. I've loved everything, all things scary movies. I've ghost hunted, most of my life. But my buddy Zach Hall, he's the one who pushed me into TikTok because I was at that point in my life where I felt like I needed something to do, kind of like an outlet, and I thought it would just be something to pass the time. And it took a while for him to push me, but he finally lit the fire under me, and I've actually been very blessed with it.
You do a good job on there, man.
I appreciate that.
What has been the crazy story that you have followed so far? Like this just blew your mind away.
Oh wow, dude, that's a good question. I literally when I started the TikTok, which was in April 26th of 2023, like I didn't know where it was going. I knew I was going to do paranormal. I knew I was going to do, my own experiences and evidence I'd captured. But I learned pretty quick that that runs out pretty quick. Like you go like, I don't really have that much. So my thing was like, well, I'm just going to try to get people to send me their stories, or their evidence they've captured. And for the first little bit, it was kind of slow. I would get one here or there. People would send it, but now I get literally probably hundreds a week. Like it's hard to keep up with them. But the craziest one, oh man, dude, it's so hard. Like because I cover like ghost hauntings, and I also cover like the Bigfoot, cryptid, dog man. Um, one of my first videos, I think it was the first video I posted that hit 1 million views, was about it was out of the Sevierville, Smoky Mountain area. The girl who shared it, well, she's a lady, a woman now, but when she was 8 years old, she and her family stayed in a cabin in the Wares Valley area around Pigeon Forge. And she said the cabin itself almost had a cult feel. It had a lot of weird stuff going on. But her mom and dad all said they seen a Mothman like creature. It wasn't big. She said it was just maybe 2, 3, 4 feet high. It had like glowing red eyes, but she described it as like a Mothman or a gargoyle. And that's the first video I had that ever hit 1 million views. And that one's just always, I don't know why, but that one always, I think about that one quite often.
Yeah, I love the Mothman stories and stuff. Actually, I interviewed the guy that makes the costumes for the Mothman Museum in Point Pleasant, West Virginia,
Oh,
David Beadle. Yeah, he actually has some letters that some of the witnesses wrote each other
oh wow. That's
in
awesome.
Point Pleasant with their experiences seeing the Mothman, and also I think seeing the Man in Black. They wrote some letters to each other about the Man in Black.
That's awesome. That's definitely like a bucket list place because it's not that far from where we're at. And I would definitely like to visit there just because that's just like iconic in the paranormal world, Mothman. So
Yeah,
that's a bucket list place for sure.
yeah. Interviewing him, he's just a bucket of knowledge about the Mothman topic. He knew everything about. He's from the Point Pleasant area,
Right,
so his like families lived there. His family still lives there, so he had all kinds of stories from the locals that they probably wouldn't tell somebody else.
right,
They
right.
felt comfortable telling him. So
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing I've learned over the past, year and a half or so is that so you have some people who like, tag me in if you share my story, tag me in it. But I would say the majority of people are like, I want to remain anonymous. I've only told one or two people this in my life, but I don't want people to think I'm crazy. And I get that, because it's a subject that some people just, they don't want to hear it, they won't have it. And I get that. But if you've never experienced it, it does sound crazy. But if you have experienced, it's very real.
Definitely. And you have paranormal investigation experience as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've been doing that. Oh man, probably close to 25 years. When I started kind of in law enforcement, which was actually next month will make 24 years. That's when I kind of started doing that also, kind of come hand in hand. And I mean, I'd had a couple experiences as a kid, nothing too crazy, but the past 24, 25 years, dude, like I could write a book, you know. Uh, but yeah, and for most of that time, it was ghost hunting, But in the last couple years, as I mentioned Zach a minute ago, Zach was on Expedition Bigfoot and a lot of those shows. Um, and I got to become friends with those guys from Expedition Bigfoot, especially Russell Akeport. He's a good friend of mine. And we were actually just texting yesterday morning. Um, but I've actually got to go out on investigations with Russell, and so that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's definitely cool, man. I love Bigfoot hunting as well. Well, I'm never. I mean, I love hearing about Bigfoot hunting.
Right.
I was supposed to go Bigfoot hunting with one of the local investigators, but he unfortunately passed away.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I've honestly not really done. We went investigating. It was actually a ghost hunt, I guess you would say. Um, Russell was in visiting. He lives in Utah, but he comes in. Used to come in and stay with Zach a lot and visit, and we'd all three of us would hang out and go, check stuff out like that. But he's a super cool dude. Russell, he's ex-military, no nonsense type of guy, but he's a big sweetheart. He's a gentle bear, I guess you could say. He's a good guy.
definitely. And what kind of experiences have you had ghost hunting? Have you picked up a lot of voices here recently? I mean,
Um, well, yeah, I mean, over the years, I guess a lot of EVPs. I've caught somewhere on one of my old computers. I have a ton of really good ones. If I could ever dig those out. But in the last couple of 3 years, I've not really got to actually go to a lot of places like I used to. But that's something that I'm hoping to get back into because, like I said, well, as you probably know, my TikTok is mainly storytelling. TikTok, it used to be really quick stuff, 5, 10, 15 seconds. Now they've upped it to, I think I get emails from them. They're up to like 30 minutes now. They're trying to compete with YouTube, and YouTube does the YouTube shorts. I think he's trying to compete with TikTok. So it's just kind of back and forth. But I'm actually getting ready to start YouTube where I plan on doing some like overnight investigations and things like that.
that's gonna be fun. As a former paranormal investigator, I love using the ghost box.
Yeah, yeah, those are cool. I've actually been buying up a lot of equipment. Not really got to use all of it. This week, I actually got in a SLS camera. I've recently bought REM pods, Avos, Spirit Box, Music Box. I don't know, but I've not really got to use it much. I've got it just kind of sitting there, and I look at it every day like I need to take that out, but hopefully soon, I'll get that rolling.
Definitely, man. And you have here a bunch of like stories about Bigfoot and the Smoky Mountains and stuff. I know you told one earlier, but
Right.
there's more than just that one as well.
Oh yeah, dude. And that's the thing about it. Like when I started TikTok, I knew nothing about TikTok. Honestly, I did not. I thought it was mainly just a bunch of like young kids dancing and lip syncing, which there is a lot of that. But then I discovered that there's every niche out there, ghost hunting, whatever. But, when you start TikTok, for most people, it's pretty slow. You live in that where you get 1 or 200 views and you're lucky if you get that. And so I was just trying different things. Like whenever I commit to something, I go head first. So I was researching, watching videos, YouTube videos, listen to people who had a lot of followers, do this, don't do that. If this ain't working, try this. And it took me a little bit, but my first video that kind of blew up was about a haunted hotel in Gatlinburg. And that just kind of set alarm bells off, which I love Gatlinburg. I love the Smoky Mountains. That's one of my favorite places. And I got to thinking, like, that's the most visited national park in the United States. So, lots of people, millions of people go there every year. And so I started just kind of doing videos in that area, and people from that area started sending me stories. And that's when mine really honestly blew up. Like my TikTok kind of blew up at that point. But yeah, Bigfoot's a big thing in the Smokies. And recently, I found it pretty interesting. There's a lot of talk about feral people, like wild people, that live in the Smoky and the Appalachian Mountains. And those videos do really well. People are really interested in that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
What's one of them stories that you've heard about the therapy?
oh, dude, I've heard some strange ones. One that I done a while back, probably a month or two ago, that I thought was really interesting, actually come from a park ranger, and he had went out to, I can't remember what he was doing. I think he went to like check on one of the fire towers or something. And as he was coming back out, he felt like he ran into a couple people who were hiking, and they had said people were stalking. And he kind of told them to go on out. He'd check into the store. He feared it was just other people messing with him. And he could hear things from a distance, but didn't see anything. And when he got back to his truck, he seen somebody, he left it unlocked, like going through his stuff. And he thought it was just somebody trying to steal, probably out of their head, maybe. And so he kind of snuck around behind them. And when he got in view, he had his weapon. Like it was just this wild looking dude, completely naked. And he like come tearing out of there and just run over this guy and took off back into the forest. And so this guy got up and chased him, and it was getting dark. And when he got, 100 yards or so into the forest, and he was losing daylight quick, he began to hear like multiple people kind of surrounding him. And he was kind of getting freaking out, and he was hollering at his, co-workers, and they were telling him, like, you just need to get out of there. And so he did. He backtracked out and met up with this other park ranger who was like an older guy, had been there for a while. And allegedly, he told him, he's like, look, this is something we're not supposed to talk about, but these people do exist, and just you got to watch your back. You can be outnumbered quickly. But I thought that one, I guess being in law enforcement myself, that one just kind of struck a nerve with me.
That's
But
definitely
I've actually had a couple stories, maybe two or three from allegedly from park rangers, um, with encountering these people. I can't confirm that this stuff really happened, but some people swear it is truth, and that's what I do. I share it. Some people say, "Oh, that's crazy," or I just share the story. I can't, validate is it true, is it not? I don't know. You know, so, and I don't share every story that I get because some of them they're out there, even though maybe they're real, but I share the ones I think I find interesting.
definitely. Have you got any ones like local here to Knott County?
Uh, that's a good question. Yeah, well, I have actually. There's a girl I know her. She's from maybe the Vest area. I'm not sure, but she's shared some pictures. I've shared one or two of her pictures, and her house and the land around her house. She says it's haunted. She shared a lot of told me some stories. She's found a lot of Indian artifacts, and I think one video I shared was from one of her like security cameras on her house, and there was a anomaly in it. It just didn't look natural at all. And I think she shared a picture with me. They had a campfire, and it looks like a woman that's actually like in the fire.
Like a misty sort of.
Well, it kind of, but you can make out some features. Like it. If you look at anything long enough, pixelization or whatever, you can make. Sometimes create stuff in your head. But I found it to be pretty interesting. Like it didn't look like it was pixelated or anything. It looked like a woman, in the fire. So, some people honestly they'll send me pictures, and I'm not trying to discredit them, but they'll say, this is so wild. Look at it, and I honestly don't see anything. Like I see absolutely nothing, and maybe I'm just not seeing what they see. But sometimes the really good ones, like you, immediately like, oh yeah, that's freaky. And hers were pretty good. So, but yeah, and that's one thing I honestly, when I started this TikTok a year and a half ago, like other than just my close friends, I didn't tell anybody around here. Like I never shared it on Facebook. I never shared it on Instagram. I had a few people from this area who just stumbled up on it, I guess. But it wasn't until just a few weeks ago that I actually shared on my personal Facebook page, that I even had TikTok. And the reason by doing that was because I was interested in hearing people from this area, if they had stories, I wanted them to share them with me. And so, it's kind of and I guess you probably know this by doing these podcasts and things. You put yourself out there when you get in front of the camera. It's uncomfortable sometimes, especially in the beginning. And so I was, always, what's people want to think, this and that. But I'm just too old and don't care anymore. Like you like it or you don't. It is what it is.
Yeah, definitely, man. It is nerve wracking at first for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It's just talking into a phone or a camera. It feels awkward. But after you do it for a while, it really not anything. It just seems natural after a while.
Yeah, definitely, man. Especially when you're talking to somebody else. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's a learning curve for sure, and that's one thing now. And I don't like. I'm still a very small fish in a very big pond. I know my place. I'm not, as those saying, too big for my britches. There's people with a lot more followers than me, but I've been very blessed. And I have a lot of people who reach out to me now who want to start their own TikTok, asking me pointers, what, because there is a method to the madness as far as like how to get viewers, how to get followers, and this and that. And there is certain things, if you do it, it definitely does make a difference. So I enjoy helping people with that.
well, it's definitely working for you.
Yeah, it has been. It took me about 3.5 months or so to get monetized, and I honestly thought it would take me years. And I was very blessed, and I got monetized in about 3.5 months. And it's been increasing every month for me, so I've been very blessed with it. For whatever reason, I can't figure it out. Some people like hearing my stuff, and I, I appreciate it. I really do.
You got any UFO stories and alien stories and stuff?
Um, I've had people share some stories with me. Me personally, it's actually kind of weird. The night, actually, it was just about a week or so before I started TikTok. I'd never seen you. I'd always found it very interesting, UFOs. But I was on my way home from work one night, and I was about 2 or 3 miles from my house, and I seen something. It was about 10 o'clock at night, probably in the sky, and I thought it was a helicopter. I just kind of looked up, and it was one of my first TikToks. I just grabbed my phone real quick because as I looked at it, it looked weird. which you can't see it good on my TikTok, which sucked because I was seeing something totally different. I've been enough around in my job, like medevac helicopters. I know what they look like. This thing, dude, was different. It wasn't an airplane, unlike any helicopter I've ever seen. And the lights were weird, but what was really weird is that I was watching it as I was driving, and it was moving pretty slow, and then it was just gone like that. It was gone, like not a trace. It just completely zoomed gone, and I don't know what it was. It's definitely UFO because I have no idea what it is. Now I don't know if it was aliens or not, but I found that interesting because that's the first time I'd ever really experienced anything like
Yeah, there's a lot of sightings around here in Knott County, actually.
that. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm not gonna say any names, but I've been told quite a few stories.
well, I've heard a couple. Well, I'll actually share something might happen to my wife about probably 2, 3 years ago. She used to work in Whitesburg, and on Wednesday she had worked till I think 8 o'clock, and so it was usually 9:30 before she get home. But she was coming through the Lake Car area, and I know right where it's at, but in that area there's not any houses or anything. And she said she seen something. It wasn't big. It wasn't a drone, and I can't remember. Now she's described it as the best of my I can remember. It was almost shaped like the state of Kentucky. It had a few lights on it. It was like right in front of her vehicle, and then it just disappeared. But it wasn't real big. She said it wasn't a drone because that was my first thought. It's a drone because there was no houses around, and she said it was weird. And
On
so,
1410,
excuse me,
on 1410.
and I was on 160.
Oh yeah, 160. Oh yeah, that's where I live.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it wasn't real far from the area where you live.
Yeah. I've actually had a sighting where I live at. When I was a little kid, I
Oh,
seen one.
really?
Yep, when I was in the swimming pool.
Wow. Oh, well, that's interesting. What'd you say?
It was just for a second though, man. It looked like one of them little dishes, like not little dishes, one of them big dishes from
Right.
like back in the day, like Dish used to do and stuff. And it had red lights and it went boom.
Really?
Just saying it for a second though, but I still remember that like it's yesterday.
Wow. Anyway, now that we've talked about it, that brings up another memory. Some good friends of mine, I won't mention their name, but um, they're actually state troopers now. When they were younger, probably early teens, they were in the old Caney grade school playing like flag football or maybe tackle. I don't know. It was in the evening time. It wasn't dark. And they said there was something that come down like that. Right. I mean, they all seen it. A bunch of guys. And I can't remember the whole story now, but I've heard them tell it like a lot. And like it just like zoomed down and oh, dude, I'll have to find that, ask him about that and remember the detail. It was wild. And like they swore it to be truth, and I believe them. And so, yeah, I mean, I didn't know there were a lot of other people had sightings here, but that's pretty interesting. I'll have to check into that.
Yeah, I have another. I can't remember the area it was in Knott County, but there was another one where
Hmm.
there was like two or three cars from multiple people, and they seen something in the sky, and their like radios stopped.
Really? That's pretty neat.
And this
What?
from more than one person. This is from about two or three
Really?
different people. I can't remember who the people's name was. They just tell you stuff once you see
Uh,
them do podcasts and stuff.
yeah,
And we had mutual friends.
right. Yeah. Well, one thing I've always found pretty interesting, and I've been meaning to kind of look into it more and haven't, but are you familiar with like ley lines, like how they run? Like, now my mind has failed me to try to explain it. You can Google it after this if you like. It's called ley lines. It's like about how the lines, I don't know if it's like latitude, longitude, something, but the 37th ley line or parallel, they call it, runs right through this area, like through Somerset, London, and a line across the United States. And it actually comes like almost like right through Knott County. And that ley line is like a lot of like UFO paranormal stuff are associated with that. It's a something I've not looked into a ton, but there is some stuff with that. It's pretty neat.
Definitely, man. I definitely believe it because I mean, there's a lot of UFO sightings, and I've heard one Bigfoot sighting. This woman was in her kayak down below. You know where the bridge is? Like you're headed up towards Burgess Creek.
Yeah,
You know where that waterfall is? Towards
yeah,
that way.
oh yeah,
That's where it was. Earl Jeffrey Mullins told me this story. He's a big used to be a Bigfoot researcher from Knott County. He unfortunately passed away. But he
right,
was telling me this woman told him a story. She was in her kayak, kayaking with like I think one other person.
uh-huh.
They looked up and seen like a 7'8"
Really, that's wild, dude. I
up
hadn't heard.
on the cliff up there above the waterfall.
Really,
And you know if you've been to that waterfall, ain't no human making up that cliff.
no, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. I fished in that area. Yeah, that's. I had no idea about that. That's awesome. One I did hear from Knott County. Um, I won't say their name. I don't think they would mind, but it's somebody in law enforcement. But this happened like probably back in the early '60s, maybe even the late 1950s. But you know where Songfort Mountain is, goes up by the college over that way. Well, this guy, I don't even know if he was born yet. He's older, but his mom at the time, she passed away a few years ago. She was in her 90s. But at the time, she was a young lady. But they lived in a little house there on the mountain. And he said his mom swore to this till the day she died that it happened. But one day, one of their neighbors said that it was, I think, after dark, heard something on their front porch. And so he opened the door, I guess, thinking it was somebody, and said there was this huge, hairy, they described it as an ape like creature, you know. And I don't remember the whole story, but one thing led to another. It showed aggression. He had an axe by the door. He'd been chopping wood, and he killed this thing. And he went to Heineman. I'm not sure if he went to the sheriff or somebody. And a little bit, I don't know if it was later that day or the next day, there was some people showed up, said they was like from the health department or something. I don't know. He didn't know who they was. And they like got it and took it, and he never heard from him again. And he said his mom, and she was like a Christian lady, said she would not lie about nothing. She seen. She said that legit happened, you know. So, you know, who knows? I mean, there's stuff out there, dude. We have no idea.
That sounds like some black and man type thing. The man
Yeah,
in black type thing.
yeah. That's what I was thinking too. Because those dudes come and got it, and they just took it away and never heard from them again. But you know, you got to think that was probably 50, 60 years ago. So who knows? You know. And at that time, they said ape like. I don't really know how big Bigfoot, the term Bigfoot actually was. So that's the only way people knew how to describe it. Like a big monkey or a big ape or something, And, there's nothing like that around here. So who knows?
Yeah. It's always interesting hearing the Bigfoot stories and also hearing the man in black stories as well.
Yeah.
About West Virginia and all that in Point Pleasant after the bridge fell. You have a lot of man in black stories.
Right. Yeah. I've heard a few things I always found that really interesting. And I knew a couple people from that area, and I've heard them, which I haven't seen them in probably 15, 20 years, but they would always talk about, similar things like that. But yeah, that's where there's smoke, there's fire. It's one thing if you got a few people who talk about it, but when you got thousands of people who talk about it, something's going on.
Definitely. Have you heard any Dogman stories?
I have shared a lot of Dogman stories on my TikTok from Smoky Mountain area mostly. I don't know if I've heard any from around this area. I know I've heard some just throughout Appalachia in general, but a lot in the Gatlinburgs, Pigeon Forge area. That stuff's a big dude. People like I had always I'd heard of Dog Man, but didn't really know much about it until I started looking into it when I started TikTok, and that's pretty freaky. I actually got a story. I think it was today, maybe just a couple hours ago. I was reading it, a lady had sent me, and it was can't remember where it's from. I'll probably do a video on it because it's pretty good. But she said it ran like across the road and in front of they was in a church van. And like it was a big bipedal, hairy dog like creature. And a lot of people I've had message me about that say that they think they're engineered by the government, some kind of mutated hybrid thing. But, who knows? It's an interesting thing.
That's a good theory.
Yeah. And dude, like I said, I've heard someone say one time, if we actually knew everything that was out there, we probably wouldn't be able to sleep at night. But one thing is that a lot of people disagree with me on, and that's fine. Everybody has their own opinions, especially when it comes to ghosts. Like, I don't believe necessarily like when a person passes away that they haunt a building. I think they go to God for judgment. I think it's demonic stuff that manifest, try to manipulate people into thinking, oh, that's your great Uncle Joe. You smell a cigar smoke or whatever. And my personal experiences, and I always try to go to the Bible. I'm a devout Christian. What does the Bible say? And so in my personal experiences in 24 years and based on my faith, I believe it's demonic stuff. And a lot of people don't agree with that, and that's fine,
That's
um,
why I don't ghost hunt anymore.
and that's a good reason. I'm very careful with what I do, like, and I've shared videos about this, but when I was younger, we made the mistake of playing Ouija boards a few times, and that was a valuable lesson learned. So, nope, none of that stuff. I learned quick not to play with the Ouija board. Some people think they're harmless, but
No, I wouldn't mess with that. And
no.
that's why I don't do paranormal investigations anymore. It's been about 10 years since I've done one. That's
Yeah.
actually why I quit because I agree with you, they are demonic spirits.
Yeah, I believe that 100%.
And I believe 100% of all ghosts is demonic spirits.
Yeah, yeah, I do too. That's what I said. I don't think that a person dies and they haunt a house or a building. I don't believe that at all. I think it's just one way they manipulate people, that opening themselves up. Oh, it's so and so. We want them here in our house. Or what? Use our energy. Never do that. It's not them.
Never open up yourself to
And like I said, I have got all that ghost equipment, but I'm very, and I've honestly not used much of it at all yet. But I don't try to communicate much. Like if I turn something on, I don't really ask many questions. I just kind of set it there and let it be. And but I'm very careful, and that's one thing, honestly, because of my faith, that I was kind of apprehensive about doing the TikTok about the paranormal because, I always pray about everything. Lord, is this from you? Is it not? And I was up in the air, like I almost quit. And actually, here in a few days will make a year my mom passed away, and that's when I really struggled with it because I'd been, a Christian for 17 years, but when she passed away, that brought me back closer and to God. And then I struggled for a while about not knowing whether to pursue this, and so I prayed long and hard about it. Like I had just started making money from TikTok at that time. I was like, I don't know what to do. And so I prayed and prayed about it. And then it's just like kind of one day the Lord, I was like, Lord, if it's your will for me to do it, I want my message. And then that's honestly my biggest goal with my TikTok. I feel almost a obligation to share that with people. You know what I'm saying? that like when I talk to God in prayer, I was like, you know, I believe if I will share what I believe to be true, and I share a lot of Christian stuff on my TikTok, and when I started doing that, dude, my TikTok blew up. And I got that just feeling of like, no, I'm like, oh, it's okay. As long as there's just certain lines you don't cross and you make sure to tell people the truth and you put me first, then it's all right. And I've reached a lot of people about my faith. It's given me a platform to share faith with it. And I've actually think I've helped a lot of people that's like private message me, like I have this going on. What should I do? I was like, pray, go to God, go to Jesus. My house is haunted. What should I do? Use the name of Jesus. That's the most powerful tool you got. If you got a Bible, in the name of Jesus, you're good to go. And so honestly at the key. If I don't make another dollar from TikTok, if I can say one thing to help somebody, then it's worth it with that for me.
Yeah, ghost hunting used to be fun, but I definitely do not regret quitting it.
Right. Yeah, I get that. I know what you mean. I seen a guy almost what I think almost got possessed one night. It was kind of a wicked time. It's been, probably 15, 16 years ago, but it was a freaky night. Like he was at least oppressed. He may not have been possessed, but he was oppressed. Like he was totally not himself. He was seeing stuff and like his eyes, dude. When I say turn black, I don't mean like the movie where his whole eyes black, but they were much blacker than they should have been. And he like had a time period there like where he don't remember nothing. Next day he was in church. That was like on Saturday, Sunday morning he was in the church. And it scared him. It scared all of us. We got him out of there and started praying with him, and he kind of snapped out of it. But it was a wild night.
Yeah,
But there's a lot of crazy things out there. It's I had a kind of like I said a minute ago with a good pastor friend of mine. Well, you probably know him, Jamie Hughes. I remember 20 years ago, probably we was playing rook one night, and he said if we could probably see everything around us, we probably wouldn't sleep at night. There's another world around us that we just don't see. Sometimes it comes through, I guess, but it's a lot of interesting things out there.
definitely, man. And a lot of people, like you were saying, how people thought the government created Dogman. A lot of people think that was Mothman as well.
Right? Yeah, I've heard that theory, and that's interesting. A lot of people ask me because I share my views about ghosts a lot, and people think they'll ask me, "Well, what do you think about Bigfoot and cryptids and Dogman?" And I don't know. They could be engineered hybrids. They could be biological. They could be another form of demonic manifestation. I don't know. Uh, but I believe we're like again, like where there's smoke, there's fire. Too many people have seen too many things for something not to be there.
Yeah, I believe Bigfoot's an ape.
That's very possible. Absolutely, I believe that's very possible. People say, "Well, I get this all the time." Why? If Bigfoot was real, why ain't we found a deceased one? A body. I don't know. I mean, if they are real and if they're apes, just a bipedal biological creature, they're obviously highly intelligent. Maybe more than we give them credit for. Maybe they bury their dead. Maybe who knows? I don't know. But I definitely believe they're real, 100%.
Yeah, I've seen some crazy pictures. Some Bigfoot researchers sent me, man. I definitely believe they're real.
Oh, no doubt. Well, I had the privilege this past July. Every year they have in Gatlinburg, they have a Smoky Mountain Bigfoot conference. Thousands of people come, all the top people. And I went down a couple of years ago with my buddy Zach Hall, and because that's when all the cast from Expedition Bigfoot was there, and we went down. That's when I first met those guys, and I was like, dude, I knew Bigfoot was big. I didn't know it was that big. Like people come from everywhere. But this year I went down as a vendor, like for myself, my TikTok, and I was blown away. Like it was. like I met so many people, and like it was weird. I had people from Georgia driving up there to see me. I'm not anybody, but it's a great community. Like everybody gets along and they share their stories, and it's something that they have it every year in July. I would recommend if you're into that stuff. They kind of have all things paranormal, ghosts, Bigfoot, Dog Man, Mothman. But it was a great experience. My wife and kids went with me, and we all had a great time.
Yeah, that's definitely good, man.
Yeah.
Uh, I would like to go to it for sure. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
Kentucky has one too. Well, sort of Scarefest.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always wanted to go to that. They have, yeah, there's several different ones. The reason I know that because my buddy, the Russell Acord from Expedition Bigfoot, he travels, dude, when he's not filming, which he's got a job too. But I think he was actually, they just had Point Pleasant. They had like a Mothman thing here maybe in the last week or two. He went to that. But there's a couple right around the Gatlin or Smoky Mountain area. And I think they had one in June and maybe Townsend, which is around Cades Cove. Then they have the one in Gatlinburg. That's the one I've been to. But it's a good time, you know. Everybody just gets together in the big convention center, and they have all the top Bigfoot people, you know, speakers. And are you familiar with the missing 411 books and stuff?
Mm-mm.
What's that dude's name? David Pilates or something like that. But he's, I think he was a former police officer, but he wrote a series of books, Missing 411, about all the people who go missing every year in like the national parks and all the theories behind them with like the feral people, the Bigfoot, Dog Man. He's like pretty big in that world, you know. And him and there was a lot of people there in that Bigfoot world. And it's a good time. It's really interesting. I'm planning to go back next year for sure.
Definitely, man. I definitely appreciate you being on, man.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Where can people reach you at?
Well, like I said, I have TikTok, the Supernatural Sleuth. My email is the supernatural sleuth at gmail.com. Anybody has any kind of story, video, picture, I love to hear and see them. And also, I have Instagram. It's the Supernatural Sleuth. And I actually guess I have Twitter. I don't use those as much, but TikTok and email. And I actually do have a YouTube account. I don't really have much on it yet. A couple repurposed TikToks just to play with it. But I've got, I think, over 100 followers on there. So anybody wants to follow me on YouTube, I'll have some long form content coming soon too.
Definitely. And I got an interview Wednesday with Bigfoot researcher Thomas Shea. If anybody has any questions and you want to ask Thomas Shea, send the questions to seth.ambergy14 at gmail.com. And I'll definitely ask him that. And yeah, I will put your channel in the description for sure. And your
I appreciate that, brother. I sure do.
I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy night and doing the podcast.
Yes, sir. Anytime. Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. Appreciate the supernatural sleuth for being on. Everybody have a good night and God bless.